You are shrinking. Right now. Not in the mirror, in the rooms you walk into. You lower your voice so it takes up less space. You soften your opinion before anyone can push back. You say it's fine when it is not fine. And here is the question that should haunt you tonight. If you have spent years making yourself smaller to be accepted, who exactly agreed to it? Nobody asked you to disappear, so why did you? 1800 years ago, a man sat down to answer that exact question, and the answer he found was so precise, so surgical, that it was buried for centuries. His name was Hierocles, and almost no one talks about him. We don't know the year he was born. We barely know his face. What survives of his work is fragmentary, pieces recovered from ancient papyrus, quoted by other writers, stitched together like a broken map. But the map leads somewhere, because Hierocles was obsessed with a single question that the louder Stoics, the emperors, the senators, the famous ones, mostly skipped over. Not, how do you endure the world? That was everyone's question. His was quieter and far more dangerous. He asked, how do you know where you end and the world begins? Think about that for a second, because if you do not know where you end, then anyone can decide it for you. Your boss decides it. Your family decides it. That one voice in your head from when you were 9 years old decides it. And Hierocles noticed something walking through the markets and colonnades of his time. The same thing you can notice on any street today. Most people had no idea where their own edges were. They lived their whole lives as an echo of what others expected. They were, in his words, strangers to themselves. And this is where his work takes a strange turn. Because to teach people how to expand, he did not start with confidence or ambition or courage. He started with something almost no philosopher had bothered to examine. He started with a newborn animal. Picture it, a lamb, minutes old, wet, trembling on the ground. It has never seen a wolf. It has never been taught anything. And yet, the moment a predator's shadow crosses the grass, it runs. Nobody showed it how. Hierocles fixed on this and asked the question that would become the foundation of his entire code. How does a creature that knows nothing already know itself? How does it know its own legs, its own life, its own worth, enough to protect it? His answer was a single Greek word, oikiosis. It is hard to translate. It means something like self-ownership, or the act of claiming yourself as your own. Hierocles argued that the very first act of every living thing, before hunger, before fear, before anything, is to perceive itself and to belong to itself. The lamb does not learn its worth, it arrives with it. And so, he said, did you? Now hold on to that, because he was about to use this tiny observation to explain the single greatest tragedy of a human life, and it is almost certainly happening to you. Here is what Hierocles saw. The lamb never forgets it belongs to itself, but the human being does. We are the only creature that can be talked out of its own existence, somewhere between being a child who takes up space without apology, who cries when it needs to, who laughs too loud, who wants what it wants, and becoming an adult who apologizes for existing. Something gets severed. The self-ownership you were born with gets slowly signed away, not in one moment, in 10,000 tiny ones. And you know these moments. You have lived them. The morning you woke up with something to say in the meeting, and you stayed silent because the risk of being wrong felt larger than the cost of vanishing. The text you rewrote 6 times to make sure it did not sound like you actually wanted something. The dream you filed under someday because saying it out loud felt arrogant. Each time you traded a piece of your own edge for a moment of safety, and each trade felt reasonable. That is the trap. Shrinking never feels like defeat in the moment. It feels like being mature. It feels like keeping the peace. Hierocles had a chilling way of describing this. He said that as we grow, we build circles around ourselves. The first circle is the self, the mind, the body. The next circle is family, then friends, then the city, then all of humanity. A healthy life, he taught, means these circles are alive and connected, flowing outward from a strong center. But here is what he understood that almost no one realizes. When you are afraid, the circles collapse inward. You stop reaching outward toward the world and start retreating from it. And if the fear lasts long enough, every circle collapses into the smallest one, a tight, defensive knot where you are no longer living, only protecting. You become a person whose entire existence is spent managing how little space you can survive on. And the cruelest part? He noticed that the collapse feeds itself. The smaller you make yourself, the smaller you believe you are allowed to be. The quiet person is handed less. The one who never asks is never offered. The world does not conspire to shrink you. It simply accepts the size you present. So the more you disappear, the more the disappearance seems justified. You look around at a life that reflects your smallness back to you, and you conclude, see, this is all I was ever meant for. Hierocles looked at this spiral and refused to accept it. And what he built next is the 3-step code that could pull a human being back out of the collapse. But before I give it to you, you need to understand why the first step is not what you would expect, because if you get it wrong, the other two are useless. Most people, when they want to stop shrinking, jump straight to action. Speak up, be bold, fake the confidence. Hierocles would have called this building a roof with no foundation because the problem was never a lack of courage. The problem is that you no longer perceive yourself accurately. You have been small so long that smallness feels like the truth of who you are. So the first step is not to act bigger, it is to see clearly. Step 1. Reclaim self-perception. Hierocles said we must return to the state of the newborn animal, not naive, but aware. Each morning, before the world tells you who to be, you take an honest inventory. Not who do they need me to be today, but what is actually mine? My body, my attention, my time, my voice. He believed that simply noticing what genuinely belongs to you begins to rebuild the center that fear collapsed, and modern psychology has quietly confirmed him. Researchers studying self-concept clarity, how clearly and confidently a person defines who they are, have found that people with a vague, blurry sense of self are dramatically more anxious, more easily manipulated, and more likely to mold themselves to whoever is in the room. The blur is the wound. Clarity is the cure. Hierocles knew this 18 centuries before anyone ran a study. Step 2. Widen the circles on purpose. Remember, fear collapses your circles inward, so the deliberate act of expansion is to push them back out, consciously, daily. Hierocles gave us stunning instruction here. He said we should practice drawing the outer circles inward, treating distant people as though they were close, but doing it from a position of strength, not need. This is the opposite of shrinking. When you shrink, you pull away from people to protect yourself. When you expand, you move toward them because you have something to offer. It is a total inversion of posture. The frightened person asks, how do I take up less space so no one is bothered by me? The expanded person asks, how do I use my space to make room for someone else? And paradoxically, the moment you start making room for others from a place of strength, your own presence grows. You stop being a person who apologizes for the space they take and become a person whose space others want to stand inside. Step 3. Act from the center, not the edge. This is where it all comes together. Hierocles taught that once you can perceive yourself clearly, and once your circles are flowing outward again, your actions must originate from the center, from what is genuinely yours, rather than from the trembling edge where you scan for approval. Living from the edge means every decision is a reaction. What will they think? Will this be safe? Is it allowed? Living from the center means you act from your own values first and let the reaction land where it lands. It does not mean becoming loud or careless. It means the source of your action moves inward, from their opinion to your own considered judgment. That is the whole game. That is what it means to stop shrinking. So let us return to the question I left you with at the very beginning. If nobody actually asked you to disappear, why did you? Now you have the answer. You did it because the collapse felt like safety, and no one ever taught you that the self you were shrinking was the one thing that was truly yours to begin with. The lamb never forgot. You did. And the code Hierocles left behind is simply the map back. So here is what to do tonight before you sleep. One small practice. Take 60 seconds and ask yourself one question. Where today did I make myself smaller than I actually am? Do not judge it. Just find the moment. The swallowed sentence. The dimmed opinion. The want you hid. Name it out loud, because you cannot reclaim an edge you refuse to look at. And then tomorrow, in one single moment, just one, take up the space that was already yours. Say the sentence, send the message, let yourself be seen at full size, once. That is step 1. made real. You were not born to be an echo. You were born already belonging to yourself, the whole of it, the loud parts, the ones you have been apologizing for. The world will accept whatever size you present, so stop presenting the small one. Start tomorrow. Start with 1 moment. And if this reached something in you that has been quiet for too long, subscribe and stay, because the next thing we uncover goes even deeper.